All right, welcome back, viewers. We're back for the third episode of the non-fraudulent bodybuilding podcast with Bostin Loyd. So we thought that this episode we'd do sort of because we missed so many questions the last episode, and we're gonna have Bo on this episode, but instead we'll have him on next week. So I thought this week we could do some answering questions, as well as before that. You know, I don't have a regular bodybuilding podcast, so I wanted to ask you what's going on in bodybuilding the last week. Is anything going on now? There are no shows, nothing.
Well, last week everyone was talking about my kidney failure.
That's true. That was.
And then no, I haven't heard shit, man. It was kind of entertaining watching everyone's videos talk shit.
Did you watch Strength Addict? The one who was claiming
I
that
didn't, but then he pulled it down and sent me a message. He was like, he said something about he apologizes that he made the video, and he was like, I understand that it wasn't false. And I'm like, dude, I said, no problem. I said, there's no such thing as, what people don't realize, man, is there's no such thing as negative attention in the bodybuilding world. It's really all kind of negative to the general public anyways. It's all negative. No, it is. It's not really accepted. So like for me, I mean, any attention is good attention in my opinion. So those videos, like the one with the phony doctor on MD, with Ron Harris, when they're like speaking a bunch of lies, like it just makes me laugh, you know, because it's like these guys have no clue, and it's like people see through most of their shit, but like it doesn't bother me at all.
Hey, I don't know if you know this, but Fouad brought on his nephrologist, his kidney doctor, on his show. I didn't watch it.
Is it on? Did he just post it?
He posted it in the last week, yeah. And he's a young doctor. I want to check it out to see what they're talking about.
I should listen to it. There's also a podcast that I need to listen to. It's on YouTube. It's called Dadvice. All they talk about is kidney problems. DADVICE, and they talk about stage 5 kidney failure and all that shit.
Well, that's a good point that you bring up, which is something I posted on Instagram recently. And I wanted people to understand that the majority of people above the age of 65 are in some stage of kidney failure. Yeah. So it's not like, you know, some people are thinking like, oh, my kidneys will be fine unless I do steroids. That's not at all the case. Your kidneys will fail. Most
people are in like stage 2 or stage 3, because I was looking at this product online on Amazon, and I was shocked. Like everyone was like, oh yeah, my creatinine levels are at 3, 2, 2.5, 3, 4. And they're all using this stuff. And it's mainly older people.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say.
I'm actually surprised Fouad was able to get a doctor on his podcast.
Yeah, he's a young.
Usually when they're a doctor, it's against their policy to go public like that, isn't it? Like, isn't it against? Yeah.
You would think that they wouldn't give medical advice publicly, but he wasn't doing that. I think he's probably asking him quite. I got to watch it carefully, and we could talk about it next week.
Yeah, I don't think they go into the crazy detail, because I think he can get in trouble unless he's a fake. Maybe he's a fake. Maybe he's like. Maybe
he works at MD.
Maybe he's like Dante.
Oh yeah, Dante. So I haven't, by the way, for the audience, I haven't contacted Dante. Everyone commented on the last one. They wanted me. So I will contact him. It's just a bunch of texts I got to respond to.
We should call him the herbal nephrologist.
No, but Dante is saying, like, he's saying, really, I didn't recommend those things for kidney health, and, you know, which only makes Fouad look more ridiculous, by the way. Yeah. Anyway, so the other thing is you had that morning anxiety last week, and we did an experiment thereafter where basically for the audience to remember, you discontinued beta blockers for a few days. You started getting some weird kind of morning anxiety, and then you reintroduced atenolol at 25 milligrams at night,
and it was better. And then when I went to 50, it was gone.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So that means it has something to do with the adrenaline making your body go into the inflammatory state. So you may be in a high inflammatory state right now that may be worsening your kidney condition.
Well, I talked to somebody, because I don't think I'd get anxiety if I came down to TRT. But saying that, I talked to somebody on email who was taking beta blockers, and because he listened to our podcast, and he said when he came off, there was 2 weeks when he came off. He said he tapered down super slow like I did, because I tapered down slow. He said when he fully came off the beta blockers, his heart rate jumped and he got crazy anxiety, and he said it lasted for 2 weeks. He said it was the worst anxiety of his life, and that's what happened to me. He said he waited the 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks, his body leveled out and he stopped having it. But dude, I couldn't last the 2 weeks. Like I was like, fuck this.
I don't think it's just a withdrawal though from the beta blockers, because really that's rarely people talk about that. It's not like benzos. Yeah. I mean, I went off beta blockers.
It's not a withdrawal, but if your heart rate goes from
your heart rate will go up because it's used to
90.
Yeah. That's true. But I wonder if that's your recent blood test, which is the other thing I wanted to ask you about. Okay, but before we get to that, so you killed the anxiety with the beta blocker. How has your blood pressure been? Have you been checking?
So the blood pressure goes down when I add the beta blocker big time.
But right now it's still above 120 or 130.
Okay, so it's weird. So on my right arm, it's like 150, 155 over like 80. And
on your left arm?
It's always 130 over 70.
Oh, wow. That means you may have a blockage on...
Okay, check this out. I'll do this arm, right? I'll do my right arm, 150 over, or 150, 155 over 80. Then I'll do this one, 130 over like 70. And then I'll go back to the right arm, and this then will drop down to like 144 over 75.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is your cuff big? I know your arms.
Yeah, I got the bodybuilder cuff, the Amaron.
Oh, you do? Interesting. This could be a very dangerous sign, by the way. It could mean that you have, I don't think that you have a plaque cloggage. I wouldn't assume so. I don't know. What are your cholesterol levels usually at, LDL? They're not high.
But horrible, but I never do it properly. I never fast. But you said you don't need to fast for cholesterol. Don't need to fast.
No, but I thought they weren't horrible. I thought they were low.
No, they're terrible.
Oh, really? How high? Over 150, you think?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't really pay attention. It just says high.
Okay. All right. So we'll leave the blood pressure for a second since you haven't resolved that. This recent blood test. So 2 days ago, you sent me a message, but we didn't talk about it. So what did you check the C-reactive protein finally?
I told my fans that I wasn't going to know till February 11th, which I wasn't going to know because people were asking me, but dude, like, cause your doctor doesn't want you to find out the results, but I called Quest and they were like, they gave me a back way on how I could find my bloods. Yeah, the doctor's office, if you call the doctor's office, they tell you, oh, you can't,
No, you can't get your, I know, I hate that. It's really annoying.
Then you call because they want you to come in and they want you to come in.
Yeah, I know.
Charge you, right? And they charge your insurance. So I talked to Quest and they're like, when you get it through us, you can go log in through your portal and you could view it on there and you could request them.
Oh,
so that's what I did. And dude, I was 1,000% sure my numbers are going to get better because I feel good, right? 1,000%. And I look at the numbers, I'm like, what the fuck? They got worse. So I want to give people like a general understanding. When I was not training at all, the first time I got blood work, when I knew I was in kidney failure, I was 6.02.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2 or 3 weeks later, I got blood tested again at Titan Medical and no training, 6.10. GRF was 12 the first time and GRF the second time was 11. This last time I got blood work, it jumped all the way. This was my first blood work I got though during intense training. I just got done with a heavy leg day the day before and it jumped to 6.35. And my GRF was still at 11. That didn't go. All my electrolytes are fine. I have trace amounts of blood in my urine. Obviously, I can't see it, but in the urinalysis, I'm spilling protein like a fucking maniac, just nuts.
You see cloudy urine?
Out of this world, just nuts. Like the range is like up to 120. I'm in like 1,400.
Holy! Do you see it when you pee? Like
it's sometimes it's foamy, sometimes it's clear.
That's weird. I've had that before. It's very scary when you see the foamy stuff. And you're watching for it.
My piss has been foamy for years. Like when I run Tren and shit, my piss always is foamy.
Especially when you run Tren, right? Do you notice
100%,
that?
100%.
Yeah. So that's why I think the Tren is the most potent thing on the kidneys because it's so androgenic.
Yeah. But Leah, I'd be honest with you, like besides that morning anxiety, which I think it was from the beta blocker because besides that morning anxiety and shit, I would never know anything's wrong with me. And like you said, I'm probably going to go down to a TRT dose real soon. Like I am going to, because me and her are going to try for kids again. I'm going to come down to a TRT dose and that would probably be a good time to come off the beta blockers again, like slowly and see if I get the anxiety. Because if I'm just taking 100 mgs a test and I'm still getting anxiety, we'll know 100% it's from the heart rate going up from the beta blocker, like withdrawals. And if it doesn't, if I don't have no anxiety, we'll know it's an inflammation issue.
Well, the thing is that the testosterone and the steroids will just increase your adrenaline. So if you take this like 600 milligrams of testosterone, then you take a beta blocker, you may end up as if you weren't taking testosterone. But so it just enhances it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I wanted to mention Boston's forum, which we didn't mention last time. We have it usually on the comments section. There's a link. You should go join it. And just for you guys to understand, when I started out with steroids a long time ago, not only did I learn most of what I knew from forums originally, because I'm older than Boston a little bit, but more importantly, even GH15, which is a piece of shit account, his forum was actually really useful for people like me because we got in contact with suppliers from Turkey and things like that. And it tremendously enhances your life if you're living in the West. So it's certainly something of value. I wouldn't recommend something on my channel if it wasn't of value. The other thing I should mention is Amino Asylum, which I mentioned last time. I forgot to mention they have a discount code for me. It's called Leo20. I don't make any money out of it. I like the owner, just like Boston. You're friends with the owner.
Yeah, they're a very good company.
They're good people, and I use their SR9009, which they sent to me. But I haven't been using it lately since my schedule is so messed up. By the way, we're recording this at 9 p.m. PST, midnight EST, and then I have another podcast after.
Who are you doing podcast with after?
With Derek from More Plates, More Dates. And
okay.
Yeah. He's made a bunch of videos about you recently, but very respectful.
Yeah. I reached out to him.
Oh, you did, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent him a long message.
Derek is a good guy, yeah. I also messaged him to let him know that, obviously it wasn't fake. And I made a comment on his video about it being fake, which he was saying it wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to these interesting questions from last week, which we didn't get to. There's so many of them. The first one is Provencio1. D. Provencio congratulates me on Lucy being pregnant. Thank you, D. Provencio. He's been following the channel from the beginning. So I just wanted to shout him out since I was with Amin, actually. Nice guy. So another thing is the Big Jeff asks, test 500 milligrams a year for longevity, maybe some Proviron and an A.I. So I know that this question is probably directed to me. So I'll just, answer it quickly, briefly. The problem with having high androgens all year round, I think it's better for well-being to be at 400 milligrams to 500 milligrams for mental, everything. The issue is basically, number one, kidney damage over the long term because androgenic signaling damages the kidneys. Number two, prostate growth. These are the diseases of masculinity. Like women get cervical cancer, breast cancer, we get prostate growth, prostate cancer, as well as kidney disease, more than women. So the higher your androgens are in the long term, the more likely you are to get that. That's why I don't take TRT. That's the main reason. The other reason is because I want to have more kids, but that's the main reason. The other thing he said is an AI. So when you have higher estradiol itself is an antioxidant. And estradiol itself loosens blood vessels. So the higher your AI goes, the less estradiol you have to protect you, both in your brain and in your blood, and less estradiol to open up your blood vessels. And finally, Proviron. I think Proviron is a really useful drug, but only for the short term and not to lower estradiol. It doesn't lower estradiol that much, but it is mood enhancing. You notice that, Boston, if you take 75 milligrams of Bayer Proviron, you feel you get a good mood for 2 hours?
I don't get that. I take
the androgen receptors are so downregulated.
I take so many fucking drugs. I have no idea what's working.
I was gonna say, yeah. No, I noticed it when I went very low on testosterone. If you take 25 to 75 milligrams of Bayer Proviron, it has an antidepressant effect, probably because of removing sex hormone binding globulin from testosterone. Probably, I don't know what it is, but you can never really use it more than 4 days a week consecutively.
How many mgs?
25 to 75, depending on the person. Now, some people think
the Bayer ones come in 25 mgs, but dude, it's a lot of those are fake. People be careful with those.
That's very true. Yeah, I've never had the fake ones though. You can usually tell pretty quickly if you don't feel an effect, unless you take 100 milligrams of Tren every day. If you don't feel an effect from 75 milligrams, it's not real.
Yeah, I've taken the fake ones before. The box looks the same and everything's the same, but they didn't. When I got my blood test and I got all my drug panel, the only things that I was taking that were fake Anadrol from Iran. And I was taking fake Bayer Proviron.
Fake Anadrol from Iran.
Yeah, well, that's really, dude. And everyone has used those. They're called Iran hormone Anadrols. Yeah. And everyone buys them up, and like 90% of them are fake.
Fascinating. I didn't even know that they fake, to be honest, Bayer Proviron. I've never seen.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them.
Really? Huh?
It's been recent, like the last since 2016.
Do they fake the Bayer Primos?
Oh, yes, big time.
Really?
Big time. It's like test probe, yeah. You'll know because the real Bayer Proviron is very thick. I mean, my bad. The real Bayer Primo is very thick. The fakes are very liquidy.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man. And There's this source on my forum that I'm banning because he sold fake Bayer Proviron. I mean, fake Bayer Primo. Yeah.
Fascinating. Someone said thoughts on solo Anavar. I think that's for you, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's a bad idea. I think you need to run testosterone as a base, like at least a little bit of test. I mean, like 100 mg. If you're going to run an oral, at least make 100 mgs a week just to keep you going.
Yeah, I think so as well. I've never ran Anavar by itself, though. It's too, I don't know, you have to be like really risk averse to do that in the beginning, but it's.
Plus, you lose all your fucking gains when you come off of it.
Yeah, but someone replied to me, Landon English said, above my head, but some evidence Anavar affects the kidneys and doesn't affect the liver as much, unlike most orals. So probably not the best idea for Boston. I don't think he was asking for Boston, but it's an interesting comment because basically the reason oxandrolone or Anavar doesn't affect the liver as much is just because it is less androgenic. And the same thing that affects the kidneys is androgenicness. So the more potential of it at the androgen receptor, the worse it is for the liver and the kidneys in long term. So that's why most of the people following the channel that have liver cancer, which there are two, both of them were using either like Anadrol and Dianabol for long time periods or Trembolone.
I'm on 20 mgs of Anavar now, the lowest I've ever. I usually always 50 mgs, but I'm running 20 mgs of Anavar only 5 days a week, an hour before I train.
You notice anything?
Huh?
You notice anything?
No, there's no way I feel anything at 20. But you know what's funny, Leo, is you probably have usually I take a injectable ephedrine, right? Like 50 mgs, and it like lights me up. Like I feel fucking crazy and good in the gym, right? So I haven't taken it in a while because of the whole kidney thing, right? So when I got those bad blood results, I'm like, fuck you. I started shooting all this shit, right? So I shot all this pre-workout shit. Like I took T&E before the gym and I trained for 2 hours. I was pissed. I got like the best workout of my life, right? But dude, I took the fucking ephedra. I didn't feel a thing, dude. So, and it's the same batch that I always take that lights me up, and I didn't feel a thing. So the beta blocker has to cancel
beta blocker, out. Yeah.
My heart rate didn't even budge at all. It didn't go over 100. Usually I could walk at literally 1.7 to 1.8 miles per hour and be in like the 130s. Dude, this shit I didn't feel it at all. I said, this is pointless.
Yeah, it's because the difference between amphetamine and ephedrine is mainly that amphetamine also works strongly on dopamine, but ephedrine works very strongly on adrenaline. So if you basically injected, it's like injecting meth, but then you took a blocker.
Yes. It had to cancel it out because I didn't feel any of the effects. Dude, I didn't even get the good breathing effects. Like usually like ephedra opens me up a little bit. I didn't get that. And then also I took kratom and I told you about that. I puked, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I took way too much, but dude, I didn't even like. Usually, I feel fucking high on kratom. I didn't get high on it at all. Like this should, the beta blocker must have blocked out the kratom.
So the kratom also agonizes adrenaline receptors, and the reason your breathing gets better on ephedrine and clenbuterol and is because it's a adrenaline agonist, and the beta blocker does the opposite. So it worsens your breathing. Actually, if you notice, it becomes shallow.
I did not get any from either the ephedra. Or what else? What I just said I just took.
That's like an alcoholic going to drink after taking those tabs to prevent the buzz from alcohol.
And the kratom, dude, I usually feel really high on cardio. Like I feel like I'm in the air. I'm like, I didn't feel shit, but it did make me puke.
That's hilarious. Okay, some guy says how to keep cholesterol levels low while bulking.
That's you.
Yeah, so
don't ask me that shit.
So basically, there's two things in terms of your diet. So your diets, one is saturated fat, meaning like cheese, fatty meat, stuff like that. The second is dietary cholesterol, meaning liver or egg yolks. That's one thing. The other way is to use drugs. And the easiest drug to use is Ezetimibe. It has very few side effects. It'll lower your cholesterol by about 10 to 20%, but probably not enough on its own. Or you could use a statin, like pitavastatin. Pitavastatin is very light. Rosuvastatin doesn't enter the brain, so it has less brain effects. Those are the two ways that you can really lower. Now, you can use citrus bergamot or niacin, things like that have no clinical evidence of affecting heart disease. And they will affect your HDL and LDL cholesterol, but we don't know if that impacts your outcomes in life,
Leo, what has more side effects? What has more side effects, ARBs and A.I.s inhibitors for blood pressure or statins for cholesterol?
Statins.
Really?
Yeah. So statins will make a lot of people have a strong brain fog, and then a fourth of women get full-on diabetes. 10% of men get diabetes. See, I mentioned pitavastatin because it's the least associated with diabetes. But so 10% of men get diabetes, 25% or 30% of women get diabetes, brain fog, and muscle weakness. So a lot of people develop what's called myopathy. And this can be very serious, like their heart can get weak.
Wow.
So the ways to avoid this is to use a PCSK9 inhibitor like Repatha, which many of you listening to this that are taking steroids probably qualify for. It costs $5,000 a month, but if your total cholesterol is over 300 nanograms per deciliter, then you qualify for it.
Did you see my blood sugar reading that I sent you? It's always the same every
very
time.
low. Very low.
Every time I get it done, it's like 78, 79.
I wonder if this has something to do with your kidneys.
No, it's always been like that.
Because you know that being in kidney failure reduces the amount that your growth hormone can upregulate your IGF-1. I found that out 2 days ago.
Well, maybe that's why I never had a high IGF level.
I wonder, but it's been that forever.
I mean, but Leo, would you say 1.37 is
a high? That's what I'm saying.
Would you say 1.37 is a high creatinine number?
I don't think it's that high. And at that time, you still didn't have the IGF-1, right?
No, never.
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably not that. Okay, so someone is just sending you some love, hoping that you get better and your medications, you get on the medications. Okay, someone asked something very relevant to you. Andres Apololaza says, based on your experience, what is the best protocol to get shredded without using DNP? And then a guy responded, says with or without.
Well, with DNP, I mean, there's no difference. It just speeds up the process. So I think the best way to get shredded is building a diet plan that works for you. I mean, obviously a ketogenic diet works, but not long-term. That's why I always say 2 weeks. And then, unless somebody's like super fat, then they could do keto for a long time and continue to make progress. But if somebody's not super fat, a keto will stop working where you got to throw carbs and you got to pull fats out. So obviously the best thing without DNP is a good diet and cardio regimen. With DNP, it's the same thing. All DNP does is speed up the process.
Yeah. Yeah, so just for people to understand, DNP is an uncoupling protein. So in our body, we have two genes that are very interesting. One is called UCP1 and one's called UCP2. They're uncoupling proteins. These proteins are involved in there's a process in our body. If you have very high adrenaline, meaning you're stressed all the time or you're in cold all the time, for example, your white fat will start to become brown fat. And the way it does that is by an upregulation of UCP1, turning the white fat into mitochondria-rich brown fat. Now, what DNP is a mitochondrial uncoupler. It makes your mitochondria inefficient, so it keeps losing power. Your mitochondria is the energy source for all your cells in your body. So I've used DNP a lot. Do you prefer to use it with carbohydrates or without?
So when my clients come to me and I think it's appropriate to use DNP, I have them do it the first 21 days of a diet. Never deep in a diet, always the first 21 days. And usually my clients that come to me that I put DNP on are very heavy, and I'll only have them do like 200 mgs, maybe 400 if they don't feel anything, depending on how they feel heat wise. And then I'll add some carbs in after the 2 weeks. So maybe 2 weeks, no carb, 1 week with a little bit of carbs, but like the carbs will be around training, but no more than like 150 carbs a day.
What do you think about thyroid medication in the long term? So I know you have thyroid issues in the long term, but do you ever see bodybuilders use thyroid for short periods, like not short, but like 6 months, and then go off it and be fine?
Yeah, a lot of them do. And a lot of them like to run T4, like when they have like running high amounts of growth hormone. Because what they'll realize when on their blood work, if they run a lot of growth hormone, is their TSH will be fine, but then their T4 will be low. Which like technically that means their TSH, like their thyroid's still working, but their T4 levels are low. Whatever growth hormone does lowers the T4. So then they'll add like 50 mcgs of T4 upon waking, and that'll put them back in range. But I don't even know if that even would help, if as long as your TSH is good, you're probably fine. So I don't know.
But do you think thyroid T3 is useful? I wasn't talking about T4.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. What about Clenbuterol in the long term? Do you like it?
No, I don't like running it too long. I mean, I like to go up and down, up and dose slow, and then down, and then taper off. A lot of people like to just get off Clen. Like they like to go up and just come off. I taper my clients 20 mcgs every week. So like they don't have a rebound effect. Like I think that's big for females too. Like when they come off of shows and they're on like 200 micrograms of Clen and they just stop everything. They stop the thyroid and they turn into fucking whales. The best thing to do is slowly taper, like 20 mcgs of Clen every week until you're off. T3, you taper off every week, 6.25 or 12.5 mgs, mcgs, every week. You got to slowly taper these things. That's why a lot of people balloon up. They're done with their show. They don't place the way they want to, and they just start eating, and then they don't taper off anything, and then they just blow up.
So I'll make a weird argument here. I think that Clenbuterol is not the most efficient drug for that purpose. Like, I think that the reason people use Clen is because it's a adrenaline receptor agonist, meaning it makes your body think you have a lot of adrenaline. And it prefers slightly the beta receptors than the alpha receptors. So it doesn't raise your heart rate as much as it makes you shake, because there are more beta receptors in the outside periphery of our nervous system. The thing is, I've noticed, since I live in LA, where I'm sure you notice this too, maybe not in the valley, but downtown, you notice a lot of meth addicts. And I've never seen, except one, I've met one fat meth addict once, but most of he was obese too, like 400 pounds. He would smoke meth and go into a store and eat a burger and stuff. He was homeless. But anyway, so I've never seen a skinny meth addict, and I've used amphetamines at various doses during my life. What I noticed is if you use a high enough dose of amphetamine, including Adderall is just amphetamine, what the amphetamine does is, instead of replacing adrenaline in your body, it upregulates it. And it does that to dopamine, making you far less hungry. I don't think that somebody can go from not using amphetamines to slowly using higher doses without losing tremendous amounts of weight, without shaking, and without having that nervous kind of angst that you have on Clenbuterol as much. The problem is you'll damage your brain more because you'll have a lot of dopamine in your brain. So, but that's something for people to realize. It's very hard to eat. You were talking about appetite suppressants on Palumbo.
The best thing about Clen is how it kills your appetite.
You were talking about appetite, not suppressants, but things that make you hungry on.
Yeah, Periactin, Megastrol, things like this.
But what's your favorite thing to kill your appetite? Clen,
ephedra.
Yeah, exactly. So amphetamines.
There's also that one Hoodia. Hoodia extract's pretty good too.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Hoodie, Hoodia.
That's very interesting. So yeah,
it's in all the appetite suppressant pills you'll find on like Amazon. It's the number one ingredient.
There's another thing that's pretty interesting that I noticed when I used to fast a lot, which, as everyone can see, I don't fast anymore. But what's been happening was basically that I noticed when I was fasting for 2 days in a row, my metabolism wouldn't slow down that much. So I would still have issues sleeping. In fact, my adrenaline would go up. So I'd have issues sleeping. You might get night sweats. After the second day, your metabolism really shoots down. So I tried this a couple of times. If you do 2 days of fasting, followed by 1 day of ketogenic eating, followed by 2 days of fasting, followed by 1 day of ketogenic eating, and especially if you use something that upregulates adrenaline like amphetamines, you'll lose fat at the most rapid pace possible. I don't think there's a more rapid pace, but you lose muscle also, obviously.
What's your definition of fasting? How many hours?
I was talking about 48 hours there.
Well, like no eating?
No eating for two days, then 1 day of eating, then no eating for two. It's very extreme, very fast.
I've never heard of any bodybuilder.
No, nobody's ever done that. No.
Okay.
Yeah, no. It's a new thing, but I don't think you can do it for like a month.
I do know a coach that trains some chicks that have chicks fast for 24 hours. Like when they're not dropping any weight at all, he has them not eat anything, just water for 24 hours.
Well, that's what I've been telling people to do once a week. I think all bodybuilders should fast for 24 hours once a week, just to reset their insulin sensitivity slightly, to improve things. It won't affect muscle gains.
Nobody will ever do that.
No one will do it. That's no. Okay. So someone else wishing you the best for your kidneys to recover. Someone says, is synthol bad for liver and kidneys? I want you to answer this first. I wonder what you think.
Dude, me and Bo were talking about this because he used to use synthol too. He thinks it might, because he said he used a good amount of it, and I used a good amount of it. I haven't used it recently, but obviously I own a synthol company, so I've used a good amount of synthol. I mean, shit, dude. I mean, your body has to filter everything you put in it, so probably, right? I mean, I'm not one of those guys that's like, no, absolutely not. Like, there's definitely a possibility that it does, you know?
Well, synthol is supposed to be fat, right? If it has things in addition to it, your kidneys have to filter those out. But if it's just fat that's located in your muscle, your body will digest it like fat. So I don't think it has to be cleaned out of your body in the same way.
Synthol than just that, man. There's like,
there's other stuff
like MCT oil base, and we got shark oil, then we got capric acid. You know, then you got the benzyl, that you got the solvents, you got the stuff to sterilize it. I mean, there's a lot that goes into synthol. It's not just oil.
Exactly. So there could be more effects. Would you genetically modify your child if given the opportunity? Wilba asks. And then someone else says, first good question I see here.
I like give them drugs. Is that what they're trying to say? Or
no, like, so now there's a technology called CRISPR where you can put a virus in a person and change their genes. And they did this in China about 10 years ago to a child. They made her resistant to HIV. And so there's speculation that, have you seen this arm wrestler that's Georgian? His name is Levan Saginashvili. Mm-hmm. You've seen the Russian arm wrestler, though, who has fingers like this thick, right?
Oh.
So people are thinking that in the future, they're going to be genetically modified athletes. So they were asking you if you could. So, for example, you can do this. Like, how can you do this right now? You could go to Thailand, you could get the eggs from your wife, and you could get your sperm, and you could fertilize the eggs and then look at the DNA that's shared in those fertilized eggs. And you could choose, like, you could have 10 fertilized eggs and choose one. And so this has actually been studied in regards to increasing human height. And what they've found is that although we know about 200 SNPs associated with human height, if you try to choose the best out of a few eggs and sperm, you only increase the height by very minimal amounts. So it's not as effective as we would like to think. But I think they're asking you if you could create a monster.
The answer for me is no, because my kid has awesome genetics with me and Ariella. So no, I would not.
That's true. That's true.
Dude, my kid, if Jackson wants to like do something with his physique, I mean, you should see how this kid's built compared to the other kids. Like, he's lean, he has no fat, he has a quad flare, like he has crazy calves. It's like he has abs, like he has shoulders. Like, I don't know if it's because I was on all that fucking trend, when I had him, because I was like on like a grandma trend. But dude, I'm telling you, man, he makes these other kids look soft.
Well, I'll tell you what may affect it actually is that while the baby's in the mother's womb, after 12 weeks and up to 24 weeks, the amount of androgens in the mother's womb significantly affect how the baby develops. Like, for example, penis size. A lot of it is determined while the baby's in the womb.
Dude, his fucking, this is not fucking weird. Ariella always says it when we're like, because we have to, she unchanges him next to other kids, other moms. all the other moms are like, what the fuck? Why is his penis so much bigger than my kids? Dude, his penis, like, he's not circumcised. We didn't get him circumcised because we wanted to. I wanted to because I'm circumcised, but he was rushed to the NICU.
Yeah.
So we couldn't do the circumcision right away. And then to get him circumcised, they wanted to run him through an MRI to make sure his brain was fine because they couldn't do the surgery. So we tried to do the MRI and he was screaming and fussing. I was in there with him. Ariella couldn't go in there. I went in there and I was watching him in the MRI. I said, pull him out. I said, we're not doing it. Dude, they had him in there for 15 minutes. I go, how much longer do you have? They're like, he's moving around too much. We got to pull him out. I go, get my kid out of there right now. I said, you know what? I put a savings account together for him and I put my own money in it. And if he decides when he gets older that he wants to be circumcised, I'll put that money. But I don't know if it's because he's not circumcised, but dude, his penis is like twice as big as the other kids. And remember, Ariella was on GH.
Oh, really?
Her IGF levels were like 450.
Oh, that has a huge impact. You know? Yeah, we'll talk about this more later. I was thinking about some of these things myself, but yeah. So that may be it, though. His genes may have changed to reflect Ariella.
Kids have rolls, like came out with rolls. He has no rolls. He's lean. It's crazy, dude.
Wow. I remember when I was a kid, when I was like 7 or 8, one of my friends was like that. Like, even when you're 7 or 8, you can see if someone has broad shoulders and good muscle. Unfortunately, never went into bodybuilding, that guy. I think
she came off the GH when she found out she was pregnant, but during the pregnancy, she was on it. I mean, my bad. During when we were trying to get her up, she was on it. And IGF levels don't just dip right away, so I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, something may have happened. So, someone asked you, Big West asked you, did you learn anything from Tony Huge and Coach Trevor? Do you believe in their protocols and why?
Yeah. Did you end up watching their documentary?
No, but I had Tony on yesterday, I think. But I didn't watch the documentary.
Tony's a good dude. Like I said, we filmed and I had to cut it early because I couldn't do I had to cut the filming 2 days early because I couldn't deal with the camera always being on me. It's like they only wanted to really film when like the camera, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm weird with that. And I just couldn't handle it. But Tony's a really good dude. Like, anytime I need like any kind of legal advice or have a question for him, like he's there for me. Like he's a really good dude. And I know it's not just with me, it's just with everyone. He likes to help. But no, Tony hasn't taught me anything.
Yeah, I think people don't understand, like when you've done as many things as you have and reached to that research to that degree, you rarely learn something new. It takes like 2 years. You come across something by accident. You hear about a new drug or something.
And Tony's stuff is more for entertainment purposes. Like he's trying to build his channel off like, wow, like that's crazy shit. Like where I'm more of a realist, like my shit's all reality. His shit's more of like, oh, this is like put 14 pounds of muscle on in a week. You know what I mean?
Have you ever heard of this guy called Broderick Chavez?
Yeah, he prepped Alex Keekle.
Oh, really? Okay.
Alex like swears by him. Alex thinks he's like one of the smartest guys in the industry.
Yeah, everyone keeps asking me to have him on to talk about steroids, and I was always like, first of all, I did message him, and he was slightly rude in his way back. That's why I didn't have him on. But I was like, I can't really learn that much from someone. There isn't that much to there. There aren't like secrets floating around that we haven't heard by this point.
I couldn't hire someone that didn't practice what they preach. Like, first of all, I've never seen any of his clients look good ever. Second of all, he's fat and out of shape. Like, I can't take a guy seriously like that.
Yeah, I was wondering, how could he get like secret information? I mean, we've read all the academic papers, we've used all the things ourselves.
It's one thing to be very intelligent, with the drugs, and it's one thing to actually have an eye for bodybuilding, which I don't think he has the eye, because I mean, nobody that he's trained that I've saw looks like good,
Yeah, and let's put it this way: every bodybuilding guru that I met and got to know, that I then asked about steroids, knew less than I thought they knew.
Yeah,
it's always been like that, where I was like, oh, actually, this guy doesn't know. You know what I mean? Well, like Amin, for example.
Sometimes in bodybuilding, dude, as weird as it sounds, the less you know, or the less you try to research, the better. Because if you try to get too scientific with bodybuilding, you actually start, going backwards. You know what I mean? Where bodybuilding is actually really basic. Like with health and longevity, that shit's like real scientific, but bodybuilding itself is very simple. And I think when people try to get too scientific with it, they actually start to go backwards, because they start to lose the actual concepts that actually build muscle and burn fat.
Which in science we call empiricism. Empiricism is the practice. If the practice is telling you all you need to know, you don't need to go find some weird study to give you an idea of something that, and these studies obviously have low external validity. Yeah, someone's asking if you're going to get a private blood work, but you did. Again, another guy asking the same thing. Oh, someone's asking you, we talked about this before, but someone's asking you your top 5 worst and best. Oh, worst also. Worst and best coaches in bodybuilding today. 7 likes. Okay. So let's start with the worst. We didn't do the worst.
The worst? Shit. Oh, the worst, number 1 is the potato coach.
Yeah.
Team Metal, he calls himself on Instagram, Metal Aesthetics. His name is Alex Sheenez. He's the number 1 worst coach in the He has his guys do like fucking like drinking salt water backstage and like eating potato chips. Yeah, man. There's so many bad coaches.
Let's say overrated coaches, because bad is hard. You have to actually, there's too many bad people, but who's the most overrated? I think presently there's no way.
To be overrated, you have to be overhyped, right? So Neil Hill, it would be on the top of that. Number like so yeah, Neil Hill would be number 1 there on that one.
What do you think of Patrick Tuor?
Oh, he's another.
Yeah, I thought he's the leader of that.
Yeah, that's a good one. So that's 1 and 2. Neil Hill, actually, yeah, Neil Hill would be number 1. Patrick Tuor would be number 2.
By the way, yeah,
Andrew Vu is somewhere in the overrated.
Yeah,
he's good, but he's not that good. Like Hunter LeBron ended up ditching him. He fucking made John Jewett look like shit. He's definitely overrated. I think he took too many clients. Those are the overrated guys. Guys that are like really underrated is like Trey Hodge, Nelson Jones. Blue Taylor is good with certain guys. I've seen him not do really too well with some white guys that I know, but then he's really good with black guys. So the Blue Taylor, like I said, I do refer some guys to Blue Taylor, because I'm like, this guy would do good with blue. And then there's some guys that I would not refer blue to because I don't think he works good with certain people.
Mm.
And like I said, dude, these are these are like friends like that I consider like buddies that I'm putting, you know, talking about. Like, I don't care if I hurt people's feelings. This is truly how I feel.
Mm.
I think Matt Jansen is actually, when he applies himself and when he cares about the athlete, even though I troll him and he's a shitty person, and he doesn't pay attention to his average guys. Like, if you're a regular competitor, do not hire Jansen because you'll not get the attention. Most likely his wife will do your program. Do not hire him. But if you're at that top level, he'll push you. Like, he doesn't care putting everyone on a ton of drugs. Like, if he sees potential in you and he knows he can market you and he knows he can put you on his Instagram, he'll push you hard. So he's another guy that's actually pretty good.
Is he the guy that trains Nick Walker?
It's crazy because I don't like Jansen at all. Like, he's reached out to me and he's been friendly with me because I think everyone's going to be friendly with me because they know that I just will completely destroy him because I know everyone's dirt. So, like, he just reached out to me for kidney failure and he was nice. He's like, if you need any help, let me know. And I respect that, but I know it's a little phony of him. I know it's not essential.
Wait, is he Nick Walker's guy?
He wouldn't reach out to anyone and offer any like kind of advice. He would reach out to me because he knows. But, you know, and then another overrated is Phil Viz. Like me and Phil talk like sometimes we get in arguments, sometimes we get along. I think he's a little off the wall. He's way overrated. I sat in his Airbnb when he was with Luke, and he had Luke checking his blood sugar like every 10 minutes and was like having to smash a bunch of rice cakes of jelly. And then Luke looked like a spilled buffalo at the Tampa Pro.
I didn't know he trained Luke Sando.
No, he didn't. Luke Carroll.
Oh, okay.
Luke Carroll has the genetics to be one of the best. And he literally should have won the overall at USA's. Phil brought him in soggy. That's the show that Jansen placed third in. It was like the worst national show I'd ever seen for the heavyweights. And then he brought him into Tampa and he was having him measure his blood sugar every 10 minutes. And then if his blood sugar was where he wanted it, he would have him eat all this shit. And he was so bloated. So he's another overrated. Dude, I'm not going to put his protocols online because I feel bad for him, but he doesn't do it anymore according to him, but I called him out on it. He does some funky shit on the show day, like some fucking dumbass shit. And I'm like, dude, why the fuck would you do this? Because I have it on my email. And he's like, I don't do that anymore. He's like, I don't do that anymore.
By the way, for the audience to know, I've had some conversations with Phil Viz. He's a very interesting character. Very excitable.
He's very you could tell he's very intellectual. Like he's
neurotic. He's like, he thinks about things a lot.
Yeah. Like you could tell he has potential, but he overthinks and he overreacts. Like, dude, I told him he was washed up. I literally said, dude, you're fucking washed up. And I'm not kidding you, dude. I have 30 unread text messages from him.
Yeah.
Threatening me, cussing at me, threatening my family. And then the next morning he goes, hey man, sorry about that. Can I buy some synthol from you? I'm like, dude, I didn't even respond. Like literally the night before he's like, fuck you. You have a family. Like basically I'm
that's why I asked you if he's on drugs.
Basically saying basically threatening my family and me. Right. And then the next morning say, hey, I'm sorry. I had a temper tantrum. How much for 2 bottles of synthol? I'm like, are you?
He's like that. He really is. I was the first time I started talking to him, I messaged Bostin on the side. I was like, Bostin, is this guy on drugs? And then Bostin was like, no, he's a little wacky, but he's not. I think he's sober. I was like, I really think he's on drugs. I thought he was on meth because it was like 10 p.m. He was sending like 50 texts.
He's a big Adderall guy.
Oh, okay, so there's something going on. I was like,
Adderall. He's an Adderall and ketamine. I don't even know what ketamine does, but he's in love with it.
Oh yeah, okay. So there was something going on. I was like, this guy is not stable. He has too much energy.
Meth. Yeah, dude, unstable is a perfect word.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I wanted to mention is the Jansen the guy who trains Nick Walker?
Yes.
So okay, so
Trigilli hates him.
So somebody had. Well, I was going to mention Trigilli hates Phil Viz, which is the only thing you two have in common.
Well, they used to be best friends.
No, but he hates him now. I think they both hate him.
Phil Viz and Nick Trigilli. Phil Viz helped Nick Trigilli get ready for a show.
Oh, that's where I first came across him. Yeah, that's true. Well, they don't like each other now.
They were literally best friends. They did a podcast together. They were on a podcast. They were doing their little podcast. and they had a big falling out. Now they hate each other.
They hate each other so much. Yeah, both of them hate each other. It's crazy. Anyway, I was gonna say that Jansen guy, he gets really sensitive if you talk about him. He messages you like privately, like, "Do you have an issue with me? What's the issue? Can we work it out?" Has he done that with you?
That's phony, dude. Like, he does that to me. That's phony. Like, he's phony. Like, he's not like, dude, I don't give a fuck, dude. If you're charging like $800 up front and $400 a month, and then like you have your wife doing your programs, or you don't respond for days at a time or weeks at a time, like, you're not a good person. Like, you should not take on clients if you're not going to do your job. So if you're going to take on a pro and you're going to take on a nobody, and they're paying you both, right? Or even he'll train the pro for free and he'll charge the amateur like a motherfucker. He'll respond, text, train with this pro bodybuilder in person, and then the average guy on the side, he just ignores. To me, that's not a good person. I
agree also. You know, when you're a coach, if you go like 2 days without responding to your messages, you really feel like a horrible person. Like, I went a day.
You should feel horrible.
I went a day now. I missed my calls for the week. I feel absolutely horrible. And like, my life is flipped over because you're taking people's money to help them and to be there for them.
He doesn't care, man. He'll take someone's money and not respond for 2 weeks.
Yeah, there's a lot of coaches like that, unfortunately. Okay, so a couple of people asked about how to deal with OCD on cycle. Game Pitbull says, any recommended meds? Did we talk about this last week?
Well, my OCD is really bad, and any kind of drug will accentuate it. But I mean, there's no real way to deal with OCD except for dealing with it. You know what I mean?
So the way that they deal with,
like, medications.
Yes, and there are medications that work very well. But OCD is basically an extreme form of anxiety in which you try to take control of your life using rituals throughout your day. Yeah. And so the way that they deal with this pharmacologically is by either upregulating GABA. With most drugs are not very good at this. With something like sodium valproate would work to relax the person, and then upregulating serotonin. So the SSRI I use the most, which is called fluvoxamine, is particularly given to people with OCD, but at high doses, like at 300 milligrams a day, 150 in the morning, 150 at night. But in general, if you do the process that I use for cognitive enhancement, if you lower inflammation in your nervous system, if you increase neuroplasticity, and then if you manipulate your neurotransmitter systems, like upregulate GABA, upregulate serotonin, downregulate adrenaline, things like that, you'll solve what you call OCD, which I assume is a mild kind of OCD that the guy has. But Bostin certainly has it.
My OCD is bodybuilding related only.
Yeah, but yours is real. That's a real version.
Like, when I'm off a cycle or not training, like just this recent 3 months I took off, right? There was no OCD, like, because I'm not bodybuilding. But when I'm in bodybuilding, yes.
Someone said, Sean M24 says, if you just stick with testosterone, GH, and insulin, no doubt you can get huge. But would there still be the health risks associated with steroids? Typically, you hear about people with problems when you add in high-dose orals, trenbolone, diuretics, etc. I wanted to explain something to the guys here. So maybe testosterone. So testosterone, if you take the dose high enough, it's going to have the same effects on kidneys and so on. It's just the dose issue. Basically, trenbolone is as effective at a lower dose than testosterone is at a high dose at the androgen receptor. But in terms of GH and insulin, just for people to know, insulin is most associated with cancer developments, and so is growth hormone. So if people like think that, bioidentical hormones are safe. No, that doesn't mean they're safe. You could take insulin for 10 years straight. You're going to basically live like a obese person, and you're going to get a cancer if you use a lot of insulin constantly. If you use a lot of growth hormone, if you have the potential for cancers, like Bostin didn't have the potential for testicular cancer. Otherwise, he would have had it by now. A lot of the people that use steroids in their 20s get testicular cancer, the most common cancer among men in their 20s. So people were saying it's just trenbolone, or Bostin did something dangerous, even with that peptide that you mentioned. Yeah. I don't think so. As I was saying, most of the people above 60 have chronic kidney disease.
What do you think would be worse, Leo, if I had kidney failure, which I do, or if I had what you were saying as, obviously diabetes, you could fix out with insulin, but...
You're talking about the liver cancer?
Well, yeah, what would be worse, if I had cancer or kidney failure?
Liver cancer, the expected mortality is 1 year.
Liver cancer, just like prostate cancer. Like if I had prostate cancer or bone
cancer. Depends on the cancers. So why I said liver cancer is because that does happen from steroids. So we have 2 subscribers on this channel who have liver cancer right now. And the expected amount you can live once you get liver cancer is 1 year. So that's a horrible situation. And many people probably have tumors in their liver and don't even know it. If you're talking about another cancer, the most.
How would I know if I had liver cancer? Would I have to get checked for it, or would it show in blood work?
So it wouldn't show on your blood work. There's one biomarker called Alpha Feto protein, FETO. Nobody checks it. In 60 to 70% of people with liver cancers, it's elevated, but not in all of them. So you could, again, not know. So that's the problem with. So the most likely cancers you would get is testicular cancer, which is pretty easy to deal with. And then skin cancer, which Rich Piana got, Chris Aceto got. Why? Because skin cancer is the most affected by IGF-1. So it just depends how long you let the skin cancer go. You could end up like Aceto, almost dying. And then it just depends on the cancer, like pancreatic cancer is very associated with high adrenaline levels, but usually happens to people in their 40s or 50s. If you get that, you're dead. Kidneys you can survive from. You can get a kidney replacement and totally change your life and probably live to 100. It just depends how you live.
A lot of people are saying, and I want to correct this, is like, oh, people on dialysis only have 5 to 10 years to live. And they're getting that number because most people on dialysis are already old.
And also they're not getting the kidney transplant.
Correct. But what I'm saying is...
most of the people on dialysis are in their 70s.
You could last 20 to 30 years on dialysis if you're like a young individual and you do the nocturnal. It's the people that get dialysis when they're like 70 or 80 that you only stay for 5 to 10 years. Like I know somebody who has dialysis, but they can't get the transplant because they're too old.
Exactly. They don't give them the transplant when they're older. So someone said, Junior Godino said, how long did you wait after your pec tear before training anything else other than legs? Can't get surgery either. Same tear as you. Thanks.
Yeah, I did. I was doing the TB 500 BPC 17. I started training chest very light with cables, like 2 weeks after the tear. Very light though, just to get blood in there, like literally 5 pounds, like just to get some blood in there. And like over time, it got better. Within 6 months, I was training, and then a year, I was fully good.
Steven asks, he asked what kind of treatment you're doing. Obviously, you haven't started treatment yet, but he's saying he went for hemodialysis, and he thinks it's a mistake because they connect your artery and vein, and it puts a lot of stress on your heart, and then makes your hormones go crazy when you work out so much they've told him to stop working out. It's an interesting thing. There's some papers, like if you work out very heavy, you get episodic hypertension, acute hypertension, which could damage your kidneys. But it's shown that in people who work out frequently, this doesn't happen. Their capillaries adjust to this. I don't know about that, but what you were talking about, this is the main issue, right? If you go on dialysis, your heart will start to have stress over time. Less so with this overnight thing, right?
Yeah, the thing is, man, is like I'm not gonna come over here and like preach to the choir, but the thing with dialysis is it's 100% that doctors try to push dialysis on people faster than what they should. I'm not going to fall into that trap. Like right now, if I went to a doctor, most doctors would be like, get on dialysis. Yeah. I feel way too good. And then once you go on dialysis, your kidneys will stop even trying to work. So the thing is I'm not going to even go that route. I know a couple people that were at my levels where they went on dialysis right away. And I'm like, why? Like, dialysis is a multi-billion-dollar company. They want you to go for treatment. They want you to do dialysis. So that's not something that I'm going to do until I can't even get out of bed. You know what I mean? Yeah,
which could be potentially a bad idea, because if you have a lot of toxicity.
If I start feeling bad, yeah, I will go. But Leo, there's no way in hell I'm going to go dialysis when I am training intensely and I feel good. I'm still eating 4 meals a day. I feel great. And my blood pressure, in my opinion, is as low as it's going to get for now, at least.
In your opinion, my blood pressure, in my opinion, it's a number. It's
So, Leo, I talked to a doctor that works with bodybuilders over here. He was like, "What are your blood pressure numbers?" And I was like, and I told him, and I was expecting him to be like, "Oh my God, that's so high." He was like, "Oh wow." He's like, "That concerns you?" And I was like, "Well, everyone says it should be like in the 120s over like 70." He's like, dude, for somebody that's like 260, he's like, I'd be very happy with that number.
Okay, listen. So there's this guy who attacked you. It's the most downrated comment. We'll make it the last one. And a bunch of people responded to him. But so I didn't read it yet. So his name is Christian Nobili. He said, I understand that this is all for views. Well, first of all, can I respond? I'll respond to this one by one. So for all for views, just for you guys to know, Bostin rejects going on podcasts. It's not like he wants to go on and he can't find podcasts to go on. It's almost impossible to get Bostin on a podcast. So when I was working with Amin a year ago or so, I contacted Bostin, who I already knew, who liked me. And I was like, can you come on the podcast? And he's like, no, no, I won't come on. I can't be associated with whatever. So Bostin is actually really difficult to get on a podcast. Even just as my friend, he wouldn't come often. He'd be like, people will get tired of me. I'll come every 4 months or something like that to help you out. He does it to me, for me, not for him. So this is not all for views. That's a ridiculous comment. Bostin could be on RX every week with a series, he would have way more views. So, and he came on my channel before RX's, so that's ridiculous. But Bostin Loyd is literally the biggest clown in bodybuilding. How the fuck do you get kidney failure in your 20s? Full stop. I'm 30 years of age in Australia, compete in the IFBB. I have training partners in their 40s and 50s with no health issues, with physiques that smoke take a fifth of what he takes. I don't know why you publicize these drop kicks in the industry. It's a bad image for young people. The internet of today is fucked. All this bullshit of what we see in America, the politics, race, gender fluidity, food, everything they do, they are literally clowns. Bostin Loyd is a reflection of that. Bostin Loyd is not transsexual, first of all. Anyway, so can I respond for you before you say anything?
Yeah.
First of all, for this guy to say that, I mean, look how ridiculous you have to be to think this way. The genetics that you have and he has are totally different. So for example, if an African-American starts using steroids, almost any African-American starts using steroids the same age as me, his kidneys will fail before mine. That's why when you get your freaking blood test, it says, if African-American, EGFR. If not African-American, why? Genetics. So just because Boston's kidneys failed and someone else's kidneys didn't fail, like Dallas, for example, his kidneys didn't fail. He died with enlarged kidneys. They weren't failed. But I'm not shy. If anyone's listening to this and thinks Bostin was using way more than Dallas, you think again. No. There are many people, like I said before, I know people that are pros and that use more than 5 grams all year round. The difference is they were lucky. That's all. Okay. And I was lucky myself because I got blood pressure medications. I was just lucky. I could have never found out about it. So the fact that Bostin developed kidney issues, he's not the first one to do it in his 20s either. We just had a month and a half ago this video about Derek Anthony, who had happened earlier to him than even Bostin.
Dude, I know many 20-year-olds that were not even bodybuilding that have kidney failure.
Many. That's ridiculous. And all of it at the end of the day depends on your genetics. And this is so important for the audience to learn. The learning lesson of this is what? For people who are stupid like this guy who posts negativity and all this kind of shit about clown. First of all, Boston's not a clown. Bostin was just a person who vlogged basically his life. And he was honestly trying to learn about things and he was vlogging them with the utmost honesty, which is why people love Bostin till today. But second of all, this idea that you did it to yourself, as we said before, so everyone in their 60s, 70s has some stage of kidney failure. Men get it faster than women. Anyone who uses testosterone will get it faster than if they didn't. If you use androgens, you'll get it faster than if you didn't. If you're big, you'll get it faster than if you weren't. If you eat a lot of protein, you'll get it faster than if you didn't. So at the end of the day, we're all on this path to kidney disease. Bostin just hated it faster than us.
I know a black guy who runs fucking nothing, barely anything. And he's in kidney failure right now. I feel bad for him. He's actually probably 30, 32 maybe.
There's one SNP that's commonly found among African Americans that makes them tremendously more likely to get kidney failure. Just one SNP. But as you say, so at the end of the day, it's an issue of and also it's an issue with anyone who tries new things is more likely to get the bad effects of it. Yeah. So the first adopter is always like that. So Dan Duchesne died of kidney failure. He tried a lot of new things himself. He wasn't like Bostin. He was using drugs all day, all kinds of drugs, whatever. But that's, a consequence of it. For example, myself, I try things myself before I try them on clients or anyone else. I might end up one day damaging my body also without knowing it.
Yeah, and I also want people to know that, like, I don't know, like with kidney failure, it's like, yeah, it's a wake-up call, right? I did dumb stuff and stuff like that. Obviously, you got to do your research. But I want to let people know, too, because this is a big thing all over. People are like, oh, he's saying that FTTP did it. FTTP broke the camel's straw. My kidneys were never good in the first place. I was in stage, according to my GRF at 44 in February, I was already stage 3 with a creatinine of 2.0. They were already damaged. FTTP just really torched them. So my kidneys were already in bad shape, not in kidney failure shape, but according to blood work, stage 3. Now I'm in stage 5 after the FTP. It sped up the process. Nobody goes from 2 to 6 in a couple months.
Yeah, it was really shocking.
It was a torch. But you know what? I would probably end up with kidney failure in the next 10 years, anyways. By the way I was going, the best thing I could have done is when I saw my creatinine at 2.0, say, "Oh my God, I should stop." which when I looked at creatine 2.0, I go, that's high, but it's not going to go any higher than that. There's no way. And I just continue to take drugs, and obviously look what happened. So I want people to know that it's not like I was perfectly healthy with no, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it was already damaged, and then the FTTP just fried me.
And when we talk about clowns, actually your behavior is the exact opposite of a clown. A clown is someone who went and damaged his kidney. Bostin doesn't have any need to tell anyone. You know that? Bostin could have told literally 0 people and just got skinny and said, you know what? I hurt my chest. I don't need to compete, and continued his life just as is without having any of this negative energy.
Like Ben Pakulski.
Like Ben Pakulski, I was going to say, like another person we're not going to mention on the podcast who also lied about it. Yeah. I mean, you guys don't understand how many people lie about this stuff. Like Bostin called me one night, he told me this story, and I had such a favorable image of this person, and I discovered that they're lying also. Even though they're still trying to warn people, like, take your blood pressure medication, they still lie about their own situation. So when you tell the truth, you let people learn their lessons. Like I was talking to Bostin over a year ago about using blood pressure medications. Now, obviously, it was probably too late anyway, but this is something for people to see. You can see on this channel the progression. You can see Bostin learn, and in the future, hopefully during this series, we'll learn more about kidneys together. And anyway, the point is, this is the exact opposite.
Isn't that crazy to think that even before any of this, even before we even knew I had a creatinine of 2, we got on here and you're like, you got to watch your blood pressure. You remember that shit?
You remember, huh?
Yeah, dude. But, and that was even before I knew I had a 2.0 creatinine. That was way before. Like, you were like, you got to watch it. And I was like, fuck blood pressure medications. Like, remember that shit, right?
Yes. That's the perfect part to end it. All right. We'll continue next week. Try to get Bo if you can for Tuesday.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna talk to him. Yeah, because people want to see him and they want to hear his story. Because he was on dialysis for a bit too. He just got his transplant in 2019.
Is his name B.O. or B.E.A.U.?
B.E.A.U.
Yeah.
He showed me his blood work. He showed me his numbers. His creatinine went from like 6 to 22 in like 6 or 8 months.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And that's when he needed dialysis.
Oh my God. Well, hopefully this doesn't happen here, but you need to start ordering your C-reactive protein on these tests. So you know. It wasn't me. It was a doctor. That was old doctor's test. Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy that they didn't order that too, by the way. Really crazy. That's not a good doctor. You need to get a better one. All right. We'll end it for now. Continue next week. See you next week, Bostin.